You crushed their little psychological house of mirrors, sweetheart. And here's the part that's absolutely chef's kiss delicious. They never saw you coming. They were so sure, so smugly, sickeningly certain you were going to shatter on schedule. And the fact that you're still here, still vertical, still in motion, that right there is a glitch in their operating system they cannot debug. Because you are not merely tougher than they calculated, you are the most formidable soul they have ever tried to disassemble in their entire miserable life. And somewhere deep down, buried beneath all that scheming and strategizing, they know it now. They finally, fully, irreversibly know it. But let's rewind. Let's rewind all the way to the opening act, because you need to understand precisely what was engineered against you, precisely how close the wire came to snapping, and precisely why the fact that you're still standing hits so much harder than you probably clock right now. Someone made a plan, not a passing thought, not some spur-of-the-moment improvisation, a deliberate, calculated, diabolically patient blueprint, with you as the target, darling. And this plan wasn't random. They studied you first, watched you like a scientist watches a specimen through glass, how you respond to pressure, how you flinch when someone raises their voice, what makes you second-guess yourself, what makes you go quiet. They took notes, maybe not with pen and paper, maybe not sitting there with a clipboard, but mentally. They were cataloging you, every conversation where you seemed uncertain, every time you apologized when you had nothing to apologize for. They filed it all away. And then they built something from it. They constructed a strategy specifically, surgically designed to unravel you from the inside out. And here's the thing you need to understand about psychological manipulation at this level. The flavor that was aimed squarely at you. It doesn't look like what you'd expect. It doesn't arrive wearing a mask and twirling a mustache. It shows up dressed as concern. It shows up sounding like advice. It shows up in moments that feel almost normal, almost caring, almost like someone who genuinely has your best interest at heart. That's the artistry of it. That's what makes it so venomous. Because your defenses are wired to protect you from people who seem dangerous, not from people who seem like they adore you, or people who seem like they want to help you, or people who seem like they're riding shotgun in your corner. And this person, oh, they understood that. They weaponized it. Their manipulation operates on ego. But you, love, you are operating from soul, and soul doesn't have a price tag. They tried to butter your ego with flattery, then scorch it with doubt. But the soul is untouchable. Yeah, untouchable. You cannot be bought, sold, or swindled, because your core vibrates on a frequency their currency straight up cannot reach. The specific poison they were trying to drip into your mind was doubt, not surface-level uncertainty, foundational doubt, the kind that makes you question whether you're reading situations correctly, whether your instincts are trustworthy, whether the things you want for yourself are even realistic. They wanted you to look at your own goals and feel embarrassed by them. They wanted you to stare at your own dreams and feel foolish for having them. There was this idea, maybe spoken out loud, maybe just heavily implied, that you were aiming too high, that you were overestimating yourself, that the real you, the actual you, wasn't capable of what the hopeful you believed was possible. And they delivered that message over and over and over again, sometimes bluntly, sometimes so subtly you almost missed it, until it started to feel less like opinion and more like some flaw you'd somehow overlooked about yourself. You think you know? You have no idea. Don't read my book for comfort. Read it to snap. The evolution of the anomaly, the manual to your new self. Grab it from the description or pinned comment of this video. Now let's get back to why you're really here. They tried to trap you in a cage, sunshine, but they forgot. They forgot you're the one who built the entire zoo. They had a tiny, limited label for you, and a cramped little enclosure where they thought they could keep you contained. But you're not just bigger than the cage. You own the whole operation. You have the keys to every gate they can't even perceive. And here's the image you need to carry in your chest. They thought you were just another river they could dam up, redirect, and drain dry. They tried to build their walls of control across the current of your life. But the more they stacked their stones, the higher the water rose. They realized you are not a river. You are the ocean. You are the tide that rises on its own time, unbothered by anything built to contain it. They didn't redirect you. They simply ran out of concrete while you kept rising, steady, inevitable, and deeper than they ever dared to measure. They were looking for your breaking point, but all they found was your breakthrough. They mistook your depth for something they could wade through. They didn't realize that the further they pushed into your waters, the more their toxic little strategies would drown. The natural pressure of your boundaries filters out anyone who isn't strong enough to respect your current. They had to retreat, gasping for the validation you refused to give. And there were moments, you can probably pinpoint them if you sit with it, where it almost worked. There were mornings you woke up and felt something in your chest that was heavier than it used to be, where the things that used to fire you up felt distant and kind of pointless, where you caught yourself thinking maybe they were right. Maybe I should scale back. Maybe I should stop pushing so hard for this thing and just settle into something smaller, safer, more manageable. You felt that. Maybe you didn't say it out loud, but you felt it. And that feeling, that specific hollowing feeling of wanting to give up on something that actually matters to you, that was the goal. That was the intended destination of everything they were doing. They wanted you to arrive there and stay there. They were running a basic playbook while you were orchestrating a symphony. They thought they were trapping you in a simple game of emotional pain. But you were already 10 moves ahead, seeing through snares they hadn't even finished setting yet. Their strategy was amateur hour compared to your foresight. But something happened. And this is the part they genuinely did not account for, did not see coming, and cannot fully explain even now when they're sitting alone, replaying the whole thing on repeat. Something in you held. There is this part of you, this quiet, unshakable part that lives underneath the noise, underneath the doubt, underneath even your own conscious thoughts, that just refused to let go. Your silence was the loudest no they ever heard. While they were screaming for a reaction, trying to bait you into something messy they could use against you, you stood there like reinforced glass. You didn't crumble. You didn't scream back. You just watched. That silence wasn't weakness. It was the most devastating boundary you could have set, and it absolutely wrecked their ego. Maybe you don't even know where it comes from. Maybe you've never had words for it. But it's there. It's been there your whole life. That thing in you that keeps getting back up, even when getting back up makes zero logical sense. Even when every rational voice is saying stay down, something in you stands up anyway. And that's exactly what happened here. You stopped being their easy target the moment you started being your own rescue. You realized that waiting for someone to pull you out was playing directly into their hands. So you saved yourself treasure. You stepped into that protagonist energy, understanding that no one was coming to drag you out of the inferno, because you were the firefighter and the survivor wrapped into one. You didn't just survive what they threw at you. You alchemized it. And I want you to really marinate on that word for a second. Alchemized. Because that's the only honest way to describe what you did. You took something that was specifically engineered to destroy you, and you turned it into rocket fuel. Maybe you got more serious about your work because of the pressure. Maybe you got sharper, more locked in, more intentional about what you were building. Maybe you started paying attention to things you'd previously ignored, picking up on patterns, developing an instinct for when something's off. When a situation isn't what it's presenting itself to be. You became more equipped. You became more discerning. The very pressure that was supposed to crush you ended up refining you. And that is an absolutely catastrophic outcome for anyone who bet against you. You're not just tough. You are spiritually bulletproof. This isn't just mental resilience, Angel. It's an armor forged by the universe, by God, by the highest power you answer to. They were firing lies and manipulation at you like ammunition. But you walked through that barrage without a scratch because your spirit is invincible. Yeah. Here's something you should know about what's happening on the other side of all this. The person who designed this little campaign against you. They are watching you right now. Not necessarily in a literal lurking in the bushes way, though maybe that too. But they're watching what you're doing, how you're moving, what's unfolding in your life, and what they're seeing is the polar opposite of what they planned. They are seeing you rise. They are seeing whatever it was they tried to end. Your career, your confidence, your relationships, your dreams, your sense of self. They're watching it not just survive, but actually grow. And that is a particular kind of torment they brought entirely on themselves. Because they're the ones who put you through the fire. They're the ones who thought it would break you. And instead, they have to sit there and watch you come out of it, glowing. You are the plot twist they never wrote into their screenplay. In their head, you were the tragic background character who'd quietly fade to black. But you shredded their script and rewrote the final act. Now they have to watch you become the lead in a story they thought was theirs. You've got that unbothered energy that drives them absolutely feral. This is the ultimate power move, love. Seeing you peaceful, thriving, and completely unfazed by their chaos is a mirror they cannot stand to look into. Think about the audacity of that plan, though. Think about what they actually believed. They believed they could study you, build a strategy around your vulnerabilities, execute it with precision, and that you would simply comply. That you would follow the script they wrote for you, crumble on cue, disappear when they needed you to. And instead, you not only didn't follow their script, you appeared to have been writing your own the entire time, completely unbothered by theirs. That's not something they expected. They thought they knew you. They thought they had mapped out every corner of who you are. And then you showed them a room they didn't know existed. A room that was locked and quiet, and full of something they couldn't touch and couldn't destroy, no matter how long they worked at it. They expected a victim, but they met a fortress. They launched an invasion on your soul, but you were built for exactly that defense. That fortress holds the treasure of your inner world, protected by walls that cannot be breached, by siege engines constructed on lies. And what I want you to understand, really understand, don't just hear it, but absorb it, is that this wasn't luck. People love to explain resilience like this as luck, as timing, as circumstance. It isn't. What you have was built. It was built through every hard thing you went through before this, every time you had to figure something out on your own, every night you spent in uncertainty and still showed up the next morning, every moment you chose to keep going when giving up was the path of least resistance. You trained for this without knowing you were training. And when the test came, and it was a serious test, a test that was supposed to end things for you, you passed it. Not because you got lucky, but because you were already built for it. You didn't just survive their game. You retired their whole playbook. You didn't limp through the finish line. You dominated this trial of the soul so completely that the game is now beneath you. No one else gets to run that play again. You are legendary in your own life, and the chapter of victimhood, permanently closed, dearest, hardcover, out of print. There is something else happening behind the curtain that you should probably know about. The people around this person, not you, the people in their orbit. They are starting to ask questions. Because when you run a psychological game on someone and it fails this visibly, this completely, the failure doesn't stay private. People notice. People who watched what was happening, who maybe even participated in pieces of it without fully understanding the whole picture. They are now sitting with that knowledge and looking at this person very differently. There is a reckoning happening in rooms you are not even in, conversations you're not part of, and those conversations are not going in this person's favor. They are dealing with the fallout of having exposed themselves through the very scheme they were so confident in. They're not mad at you. They're mad that they cannot control the version of you that knows the truth. Their rage looks like it's about you, but it's not. It's the frustration of a puppeteer whose strings have been snipped, and you, looking at them with clear, knowing eyes. That's a truth they can't defuse, no matter how hard they try. And maybe the strangest part of all this, the detail that is almost too deliciously ironic to process, is that this whole experience has made you more powerful than you were before any of it started. Not just emotionally, not just psychologically, though absolutely those things, but in a practical, real world, receipts-in-hand sense. You are more capable now than you were when this began, because you have been tested at a level most people never are, because you now know from lived experience, not theory, not a motivational poster, that you can absorb that kind of pressure and keep moving. Because whatever this person threw at you, the arguments, the doubt planting, the intimidation, the manipulation, the quiet campaign to make you believe you were less than what you are, you ate it, you metabolized it, and you kept going. That is something that can never be taken from you. That knowledge of your own capacity is now permanently, irreversibly yours. They thought they were burying you, but you were actually a seed, precious. The dirt they shoveled onto you, the darkness they tried to trap you in, that was just soil. They unknowingly planted you, and you used their negativity as nutrients to grow roots so deep that they can never uproot you now. So here's what's waiting on the other side of all this. Because that's the real question, right? Not what happened. Not even why it happened. What comes next? And what comes next is precisely the thing this person was desperately trying to prevent. Whatever it was they were trying to stop. Your success, your visibility, your growth, your happiness, your impact. the version of you that operates at full capacity and fully on purpose. That's exactly what's coming. Because everything they tried to disprove, everything they tried to bury, everything they tried to convince you was unrealistic or too much or not for you. It's been growing the whole time underground, and it's ready to break through the surface now. The seeds they thought they were planting as death were actually planting something else entirely. Something resilient, something rooted, something that doesn't wither under pressure but actually requires pressure to become what it's meant to be. Your light didn't just expose them, it blinded their tactics completely. You didn't have to launch a counterattack. You just had to stand in your truth, to exist as your authentic self. And that light was so bright, it made their shadow games impossible to continue. They had to retreat because the darkness simply cannot operate where you are standing. You are not the same person you were when this started. You are more alert, more grounded, more clear about who you are and what you're actually capable of. You have a level of self-knowledge now that most people spend decades trying to develop. And you have it because you went through something real and came out the other side intact. That's not a small thing, that's everything. Because the version of you that exists right now, the one that survived this, that alchemized it, that didn't break under conditions specifically designed to shatter you. That version is equipped to build something that lasts, something no one can dismantle from the outside.